We're looking at lesson 10.2 today, which is titled Classifying Triangles. And we're going to be on pages 385 to 388 in your big book. The learning target for today is to recognize acute, obtuse, and right angles in our two-dimensional figures. And the two-dimensional figures today that specifically we're looking at are triangles. So two-dimensional just means you only have length and a width. You don't have a height. So our figures, or in this case our triangles, appear flat on the page. They're not popping off. Whereas like a three-dimensional figure would be like a cube, where you have a length, a width, and a height. So today we're looking at just flat two-dimensional triangles, and we're trying to classify them, meaning we're trying to give them a specific name based on their features. We already know one feature is that they have three sides, they have three angles, and we're really kind of narrowing in on what type of angles do they have. Are they all acute? Are some obtuse? Is there a right angle in there? And based on those features of the angles in the triangle, we're going to be able to classify it and give it a specific name. So let's go ahead and look on page 385. Okay guys, let's go ahead and look at the Unlock the Problem on page 385. You see it says a triangle is a polygon with three sides and three angles, and you can name a triangle by the vertices of its angles. Vertices is just the plural form of vertex, meaning the corner where two line segments or rays come together. So vertex is singular, vertices would be more than one vertex. It's the plural form. I did want to highlight and bring to your attention the word polygon. That is, I know in third grade you guys defined what a polygon is, if not before in second grade. And I brought in an anchor chart here for you just as a review. So the anchor chart, it shows polygons and it gives you a description of what it means to be a polygon. So it has to be a two-dimensional shape. It has to be made of straight lines. It's a closed shape. And it has to have at least three sides and three angles and no intersecting lines. And I pulled this anchor chart here because I thought it listed some good examples, and then it has a section of the non-polygons. More often than not, your two-dimensional shape will probably be a polygon. So all of your triangles, quadrilaterals, pentagons, hexagons, octagons, and so on, decagons, those will all be polygons. One that I did want to highlight, for example, in the non-polygons, like a circle would not be considered a polygon because it's curved. So polygons are only going to be made of straight lines. Or like a heart, even though it's two-dimensional, it has curves in it, so therefore it's not a polygon. Likewise, if you have an angle like that, it's open, meaning it's not closed all the way. So in that case, the greater than or less than or angle symbol is also not a polygon. So again, just as a review, polygons have to be flat, closed, no curves, and I'm trying to think, and have at least, obviously has to have at least three sides in order for it to be closed. Okay, so moving on, it says a triangle again is a polygon. And then you have your, let me close this a little bit, make this a little bigger for you. So let's move down to activity number 1. It says identify right, acute, and obtuse angles. Now if you have, at home, if you have crayons, like a red, a blue, and an orange, why don't you pause the video now and go get them? Or if you have colored pencils, essentially we're going to be coloring in and shading in some of these angles, the acute, the right, and the obtuse. So go ahead, pause, get your crayons or colored pencils. So under the materials, it says use the triangle color guide to the right to color the triangles below. So I'm going to start with red. Let's see. I'm going to do, okay. So let's do red. It says one, we're going to shade in any triangles that have at least one right angle. And I see one here, this guy right here. So I'm going to shade you in because you have your right corner, your right angle there. I see this one as well. And this one. And then lastly, this one. And then for blue, we're going to be shading in any triangles we see that have at least one obtuse angle. And again, you may have to, we talked about this last time, you may have to turn your book a little bit to get a good perspective and a good view on whether or not an angle is obtuse or acute. When I turn my book to the right a little bit, I notice that this guy here, this angle right there is obtuse. It's greater than 90. And turning. Yep, this one here, that is a right angle, or that's an obtuse angle. Shade you in. And then this one here as well would be obtuse. And then for orange, I'm going to use yellow because I don't have an orange highlighter here. So it has 3 acute. This one, boop, boop, boop. So if it has 3 acute angles, it's going to be an acute triangle. If it has 1 obtuse angle, it will be classified as an obtuse triangle. And if it has a right angle at all, it will be considered or classified as a right triangle. I did notice that they all have at least 2 acute angles. So triangles will always have 2 acute angles, and it's that third angle that will tell you whether it's an acute, a right, or an obtuse. So that's a really important piece of information to remember. All triangles will have 2 acute angles, and it's the third angle that you'll use to classify it. Let's go down here to the try this. Oops. Let's go up here to the try this. And let's look at classifying some of these guys here. Okay. So it says name the triangle with 1 right angle. And you can kind of see that blue 90-degree angle there, that square corner. And to name it, we would say it's triangle. You could say QPR, RPQ. So I'm going to say RPQ. That's a Q there. Sorry, guys. And then let's take a look at name the triangle with 1 obtuse. So again, we're going to do triangle, and I see XYZ will be has the obtuse angle there. So it's X, Y, and Z. And lastly, name the triangle with 3 acute. So it's triangle A, B, C. Okay, let's go ahead and flip over to page 386. Okay guys, on page 386 along the top, it gives you a nice model of each of the 3 types of triangles. So an acute triangle, you can see it has the 3 acute angles. An obtuse triangle, 2 acute angles, and then the 1 obtuse angle. And then lastly, the right triangle, it has the 2 acute angles and then the 1 right angle, or that 90-degree angle. The activity below, or activity number 2, asks us to sort these triangles into the Venn diagram down below. Let's go ahead and start to sort I would just sort the right triangles first. I think that would be pretty easy, and get those out of the way. So I see this one right here is going to be that's an R, my right triangle. So I'm going to put that down here. So it's triangle BCD. And then I'm going to look to see if there are any other right triangles out there. I see this guy right here too. I'm just putting an R over it for right. You could just put like an X once you've sorted it, or a line through it. So I'm going to sort triangle PQR. And then let's look at the obtuse triangles. So any of them that have an obtuse angle will be an obtuse triangle. So this one I see here. So that's going to be triangle WVX. And this one's pretty obviously obtuse. Triangle DFE. Make sure you always have the triangle symbol in the front when you're indicating or talking about a triangle, because otherwise someone might get it confused for just an angle. So always make sure you have that little triangle at the front when you're writing or talking about a specific triangle. And then lastly, we have this obtuse one. So triangle HIG. And then the acute triangles, we have the leftover ones that looks like. I'm just quickly looking at each of the three angles to make sure that they are in fact acute, and I might have to turn my book a little bit just to triple check that. So I have RST, triangle RST. I have triangle ABC. And then lastly, triangle LMN. These would all be acute, acute, acute. Okay, let's go ahead and turn to page 387. At the top of the page for share and show, question number 1 says, name the triangle and tell whether each angle is acute, right, or obtuse. So to name the triangle, you want to put the triangle symbol, and then the 3 points or vertices that make up the triangle. And it doesn't matter what order they're in. So I'm just going to put F, G, H. So triangle FGH. Below that, it wants us to identify the type of angle or each of those are. So angle F is what kind of angle? Is it a right angle, acute, or obtuse? In this case, it looks to be definitely acute. It's for sure less than 90 degrees. So it's an acute angle. Letter or angle G, you see that square corner. So this would be right. And remember, we said all angles have 2 acute angles, so therefore letter H would be acute. Some people have the misconception that the more of a particular type of angle it is, that's how you would classify. So, you know, in this instance, oh, it has 2 acute angles, it has to be acute. It can't be right because there's more acute. But remember, all triangles have 2 acute, and it's that third angle that classifies it or tells you what kind of triangle it is. So in this case, our third angle would be the right angle, and so it is a right triangle. Let's do more of those. So questions 2, 3, and 4, I'll model for you. And then I want you to try the on your own. Pause the video and try those on your own. So we're going to classify for number 2. I definitely see an obtuse angle, so it's going to be an obtuse triangle. Number 3, definitely an obtuse angle there. And then number 4, I'm looking and they appear to all be acute. So it is an acute triangle. Go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to try 5, 6, 7, and 8 on your own. And then when you have your when you have your answer choices, go ahead and push play and come back on, and I'll model 5, 6, 7, and 8 for you. Okay, you guys should have answered 5, 6, 7, 8. For number 5, there is a right angle, so therefore it is a right triangle. For number 6, it's going to be acute again. And 7, right angle, so it's going to be a right triangle. So again, 5, 6, 7, they all have 2 acute, and it's that third angle that tells you what type of triangle it is. For number 8, it wants you to cross out the figure that does not belong. And right off the bat, I can tell which one it is. Triangle number 1, triangle 3, and triangle 4 all have a particular type of angle to them, something in common. And that is this angle right here, and this angle, and that angle. Those are all obtuse angles. So triangle number 1, 2, and 3 are obtuse triangles, and this guy right here, that is an acute triangle. So that is the odd man out there. We would want to put an X over the second triangle. Let's go ahead and flip to our last page, 388. Okay guys, on page 388, question number 9, it says, which triangles do not have an obtuse angle? And you're supposed to use the figure on the right-hand side. So again, which triangles do not have an obtuse angles? Well, only obtuse triangles have obtuse angles. So therefore, you can list the acute and the right triangles, but I'm just going to kind of condense that for time purposes. And I'm going to put acute, I can get my pen. So acute and right triangles. Oh, you know, I have a pen. I forgot my pen this whole time. Okay, that's why my handwriting looks so bad. Sorry. Number 10, it says how many triangles have at least 2 acute angles. And I've mentioned this probably 4 or 5 times, and you're probably getting annoyed by me saying it. But every triangle, there, my handwriting's better, right? Every triangle has at least 2 acute angles. Just burn that into your memory. Number 11. So question number 11 asks us to partition the square into 2 triangles. Let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to draw a line segment between point M and point P. So M to P. And let me go back, and we don't need that to be that large, do we? Okay, so from M to P, nope, third time's a charm. So from P to M, that's better. So if we partition our square into 2 triangles, what kind of triangles do we have now? We should remember from last year that squares have 4 right angles. That's what makes them so special, is that all of their angles are right. So I should remember and recognize that the angle N and angle Q are right, and therefore our 2 triangles are actually 2 right triangles. They are 2 right triangles. And then angles with an S. And then lastly, let's look at number 13, our test prep. It says, how many acute angles are in an obtuse triangle? I want you to go ahead and pause and answer number 13 on your own. Take a minute, think about that. Okay, you should have paused and answered. going back to question number 10, how many triangles have at least two acute angles? All triangles have at least two acute angles. So our answer here should have been, if I can get that, should have been 2. So an obtuse will have one obtuse angle, and then if you connect it with a line, this would be acute and that would be acute. So one obtuse and then 2 acute. Tomorrow you will be working in your Go Math workbook. So make sure we should be in a good routine now. So one day you have a video, you follow along in your big instructional Go Math book. The next day you're on your own completing your workbook page. And then we just alternate. So it's big book, workbook, big book, workbook. Please reach out if you have any questions or concerns. Thanks guys, see you next time.